My parents didn't show up to my wedding because I tied the knot before my perfect little sister did, and now, their carefully crafted picture of a flawless family is finally starting to unravel. 8 months ago, after being with my partner for 4 years, I got married. I'm 33, by the way. Pretty much everyone came to celebrate with us, everyone except my sister Sierra, who's 31, and, of course, our parents. It was a punch to the gut when my parents bailed, though I can't say I was too surprised Sierra didn't come. She and I have never been close, not even as kids. Still, if I'm being honest, I should have seen it all coming. It fits perfectly with the long, tangled history our family has. Let me rewind a bit and paint the picture for you. As much as I want to be mad at my parents for always putting Sierra on a pedestal, I also get it, to some degree. She's been one of those golden kids, excelling at pretty much everything she touches. From the time she was toddling around, she had this way of stealing the spotlight without even trying. Back in elementary school, she swept every spelling bee, dominated science fairs, and walked away with every talent show ribbon. High school wasn't much different. She managed to be class president, valedictorian, and prom queen all in one go. She's tall, slim, and striking enough to do modeling, which she actually did during college before shifting gears and diving into business school. I remember the day she landed her first modeling gig during her sophomore year like it was yesterday. My parents threw this massive party to celebrate, inviting the whole extended family and half the neighborhood. Her first professional headshot? Yeah, it got a frame and a permanent spot above the fireplace in our living room, and it's still there. That same year, I graduated with a degree in computer science. My parents gave me a half-hearted congrats and immediately went back to planning Sierra's next photo shoot. After finishing college, she jumped straight into a big-name company and shot up the ranks like it was nothing. By 30, she already had her own corner office and a shiny company car, a full-blown senior exec. Meanwhile, I've built a solid career for myself as a mid-level software developer at a respectable tech company. I'm proud of what I do, even if it's not the kind of job that gets your folks bragging at dinner parties. On top of that, I don't look like Sierra. I'm shorter, caveat, just a different build. Growing up, my mom made a point of letting me know that wasn't okay. She constantly picked at how I looked, enrolled me in workout classes I never asked for, and put me on diets left and right. She'd toss out comments like, "Sierra never has trouble staying slim," or "If you really tried, you could look more like your sister." By high school, I learned to tune most of it out, but the damage had already been done. At some point, I accepted that there was always going to be this gap, this invisible line between what Sierra did and what I did. And whatever I accomplished just didn't light them up the way her wins did. I spent years trying to win them over. I joined the clubs they pushed me toward, took classes they insisted on, and even gave modeling a go. That one flopped hard, and Sierra still likes to remind me of it now and then. No matter what I did, I was always just the other daughter. They were absolutely obsessed with her world and achievements. I finally stopped trying sometime in my mid-20s. I started building a life on my own terms, carving out a career I liked, surrounding myself with people who saw me and valued me just as I am. And honestly, life got better after that. Since I knew my parents were big on appearances, I kept my relationship with them pretty surface level. At family dinners and during those obligatory holiday get-togethers, I'd smile, nod, and sit quietly while they gushed over Sierra's latest trip or promotion or boyfriend. I kept the peace, and they barely noticed my distance because Sierra was always giving them something to fawn over. Then one day, at a tech conference, I met the man who'd eventually become my husband, through a friend of a friend. He saw me. Really saw me. Not just the coder or the sarcastic sense of humor, he appreciated everything, even the parts my family always wished were different. He never once tried to fix me or compare me to anyone else. For years later, while we were hanging out at home, eating takeout with our favorite show playing in the background, he asked me to marry him. It was simple, sweet, and completely perfect. Of course, I told my parents right away that we were engaged. Looking back, their reaction should have told me everything I needed to know. Instead of being happy for me, they just paused. No congratulations. Just silence. Then my mom asked if I was sure about rushing into things and lightly hinted that maybe I should think about getting in better shape before the big day. My dad didn't say much of anything. Even during the engagement party, they were acting strange. My husband picked up on it, though I was too nervous and distracted at the time. He caught them off in a corner, hunched over my mom's phone. Later, he told me he overheard them talking to Sierra, who was crying on the other end. They were saying stuff like, "This wasn't how it was supposed to happen, and we never thought Jenna would get married first." Planning the wedding had its own rough patches. My mom had already made tons of Pinterest wedding boards, for Sierra, not for me, and had zero interest in helping me with mine. When I finally picked out my dress, a simple, elegant A-line that made me feel beautiful, she just said it was practical and flattering enough for my figure. That was it. In the end, it was my future mother-in-law who stepped in. She treated me like a daughter and helped me plan everything with love and excitement. My husband and I went over the guest list more than once, making sure we didn't forget anyone. We sent out digital invites with read receipts and followed up with printed ones. I know for a fact my parents received theirs. I saw the notification myself. After noticing they hadn't RSVP'd, I tried to reach out, called, texted, even emailed them more than once. Either they ignored me altogether or gave vague answers about being swamped and needing to check their calendars. At some point, I had to stop chasing after them. I was knee-deep in wedding planning and didn't have the energy to keep wondering if they'd show. Luckily, my in-laws stepped in and really had my back. They helped with everything, from mapping out the seating arrangements to picking out flowers. My husband's sister even threw me a beautiful bridal shower, and not one person brought up the obvious, that my own family wasn't there. And despite all of that, the wedding day itself turned out to be wonderful. We had a simple morning ceremony in a garden, followed by a relaxed afternoon reception. It was exactly the vibe we wanted. People kept telling us how happy and in love we looked, and we were. Still, there were these moments that stung hard. Like seeing the empty chairs at the front that were meant for my parents. Or sitting out the father-daughter dance all together because, well, he didn't show. After the honeymoon, I needed answers. So I called them. When I finally got my mom on the phone, she launched into this dramatic rant, said they were deeply hurt and claimed they never even received an official invitation. She accused me of being careless, insisted she'd always dreamed of helping plan her daughter's weddings, and said she couldn't wrap her head around why I would purposely leave them out. I was baffled. I knew we'd sent out both digital and physical invites. Right there on the call, I double-checked the records. Not only had they gotten the emails, with read receipts, but we'd also confirmed the paper ones were delivered. I didn't even bother confronting them about the obvious gaslighting. I just apologized for the mistake and ended the call. Later that evening, my husband brought up a few things he'd noticed during the lead-up to the wedding, moments I'd brushed off at the time. Like how their reaction to our engagement was more shock than joy. Or how they kept dodging any responsibility when it came to helping with the planning. He hadn't mentioned it earlier because he didn't want to add to my stress, but now that everything had played out, the signs were loud and clear. The truth was simple and painful. They couldn't handle the idea of me, the less accomplished daughter, getting married before their star child. Their actions just confirmed something I'd been trying not to admit to myself for years. In their eyes, I could never stack up to Sierra. The worst part? Realizing that even my wedding day, which should have been about love, new beginnings, and family, became just another battlefield in their endless campaign to protect the fantasy of a perfect family, with Sierra at the center of it all. Not long ago, I heard from some relatives that Sierra's now engaged to someone she's been dating for about a year. I don't really keep up with the family group chats anymore, but apparently my parents are over the moon. They're bragging about planning this extravagant wedding for her, talking luxury gowns, high-end venues, even private dress fittings with my mom. You know, all the mother-daughter experiences I never got. But here's the twist, a surprising number of our extended family members are saying they're not attending Sierra's engagement party or the wedding. Word got around about how my parents handled my wedding, or rather, how they didn't, and it became the kind of story that sticks. Whenever someone asks why my parents skipped out on my wedding, I just tell the truth. No theatrics, no sugarcoating. They couldn't handle me getting married before their favorite daughter, I say. That's it. And apparently, that truth has been enough to make a few relatives think twice about supporting Sierra's big day. Recently, my parents accused me of deliberately trying to sabotage her wedding. They said people are backing out of events because of things I've been saying. But my cousin, who my sister vented to, told her straight up, folks are uncomfortable because they've heard how I was treated. According to my parents, I'm just jealous of Sierra's upcoming fairy tale wedding, and I'm spreading lies to ruin it. But here's the thing, I'm not lying. I'm just telling the truth. If the truth makes them look bad, maybe that's a reflection of their behavior, not mine. And as all of this continues to unfold, I'm finding it harder and harder to pretend like there's any real relationship left between us. What happened around my wedding drove home something I'd been avoiding for years. No matter what I did, I was never going to be enough for them. It's not even their absence on that day that hurts the most now, it's the cold realization that I never had the kind, supportive parents I spent so long wishing for. These days, I'm focused on building a future with someone who truly sees and values me. When my folks started texting me about how I'd ruined the family's good name, I figured enough was enough. I had to put it all out there. On the call, things escalated quickly. My parents jumped right into blaming me, saying I was just jealous of Sierra and that I'd planned everything to hurt her. But this time, instead of scrambling to defend myself like I always used to, I did something totally different. I agreed with them, but not the way they were expecting. I said, you know what? You're right. I am jealous. Not jealous of Sierra's career, or how she looks, or the things she's achieved. I told them I was jealous of the unconditional love and support they always poured into her, the stuff they never even tried to give me. And for a second, everything went silent. Then my mom jumped in, saying I was making things up, insisting they'd always treated us both the same. But something inside me broke loose right then. All these feelings I'd buried for years just came spilling out. I reminded them about every single birthday of mine that got overshadowed by Sierra's latest accomplishment. Like the time my mom canceled my high school graduation dinner because Sierra had a modeling callback. Or the fact that my sister's prom dress cost more than all my college textbooks put together. I didn't stop there, even though my dad kept trying to cut me off, saying I was overreacting. I laid it all out. How they spent years daydreaming and planning for Sierra's future wedding but never cared about mine. How painful it was to see their seats empty on my wedding day, and how my mother-in-law had to fill in for all the stuff a mom is supposed to do, everything from picking out dresses to planning the whole event. Their response was exactly what you'd expect, they twisted everything back on me. My mom demanded to know why I never spoke up if I felt this way, like I hadn't been trying to get through to them for years. My dad accused me of being unfair and spiteful by talking to the rest of the family about my feelings. Then my mom said the thing that finally made everything click. She said, "We never thought you'd go so far as to ruin Sierra's wedding out of spite, but we always knew you were insecure about her success. This isn't how we raised you." It hit me then, they couldn't even hear what I was saying. To them, their actions and my feelings were completely separate. Even in a conversation that was supposed to be about their absence at my wedding, their biggest worry was still Sierra's wedding. For once, I didn't try to make peace. I didn't backtrack or apologize. I just told them straight up, "You're right about one thing. I grew up in your house. You taught me that I'd never be good enough, that Sierra's wins would always matter more, and that keeping up appearances was more important than my feelings. But you also, accidentally, taught me that I deserve better than this." There was a long silence before my dad finally spoke, calm but cold. He said, maybe we should just stop acting like we're bad parents, since you've already decided we are. You clearly enjoy watching us hurt. We thought you'd want to help fix this, but I guess you've made your choice. And then my mom landed the final blow. She said, maybe you just can't handle not being the center of attention, no matter how hard we tried to treat you both fairly. That's not our fault. You decided to play the victim. I didn't bother arguing. What would be the point? By then, everything I'd been saying was basically proven by the way they responded. They couldn't own up to any of it, even at the end. So I just told them goodbye and hung up. What surprised me most was the relief I felt after. Yeah, I cried, but these tears were different, not the old desperate, crushing kind from my younger years. These felt freeing. For the first time ever, I got it all out, no holding back, no guilt for how I felt. Later, my husband found me sitting on the back porch watching the sun go down. He just sat next to me and held my hand, no words needed. After a while, I asked him, they're never going to change, are they? He squeezed my hand and said, no, but you have. And that's what matters. He's right. I really have changed. That desperate little girl, always chasing after her parents' approval, isn't me anymore. The woman who walked away from that phone call doesn't need her parents' validation. It hurts, realizing they'll never be who I need them to be, but honestly, that pain is easier than clinging to hope that things might someday be different. For the first time, I don't care what happens with my sister's wedding or whatever family drama comes next. I spoke my truth, and now the rest is on them. You know the strangest part? I feel like I finally put down a heavy load I've been carrying my whole life. It's not the happy ending I always imagined with my parents, but maybe it's the ending I actually needed, the freedom to stop chasing love that should have been given without me having to earn it. It's been 3 days since the last time I spoke with my parents, and things have taken a turn I didn't quite see coming. Sierra decided to step into the mess, and let's just say, her plan backfired in a spectacular way. Yesterday morning, I woke up to a carefully crafted message from her. It had that all too familiar polished tone she's developed over the years, the kind that pretends to be concerned but is really just dripping with judgment. She started off with, "What you said to Mom and Dad was completely inappropriate. They've supported us through every step of our lives and given us everything. Just because you're insecure about your choices doesn't mean you get to call them bad parents." She didn't stop there, of course. The rest of her message followed the usual script, smug, self-righteous, peppered with subtle jabs. "I get that your wedding didn't turn out how you wanted, but that's no excuse to ruin mine." And then the kicker. "There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that reflects the standards some of us work hard to meet. Not everything has to be a competition, Jenna." I didn't respond. I've learned the hard way that answering her only gives her more ammo. So instead, I blocked her number. Sierra's never been one to handle being ignored gracefully, so I figured that would be the end of it, at least for now. A few hours later, while I was at work, I got a call from my husband. He could barely speak, he was laughing so hard. Apparently, since she couldn't get to me directly, Sierra had gone out of her way to find his personal number, probably through a mutual friend, and sent him a full-blown text monologue about our sister issues. It started off formal enough. As Jenna's sister and someone deeply invested in the well-being of our family, I felt it was important to reach out. But then the real Sierra started to peek through. She told my husband that as the man in my life, it was his responsibility to help me act more appropriately. That I was too sensitive to understand the complexities of family dynamics, and that he, with his background, should help guide me back to reason, before I permanently damaged our family's bond. And then she went for the real prize, trying to appeal to what she assumed were his ambitions. She wrote, "Surely you understand that staying in good standing with successful family members like myself could be advantageous. Jenna's attitude is only hurting her own future, and, by extension, yours." My husband, who's a senior software architect with an MBA and zero tolerance for fake niceties, was absolutely howling. He said, "She really has no idea who I am, does she?" That evening, we read through the whole message thread together. Instead of being upset or hurt, I found myself laughing too. It was actually freeing, seeing her usual games laid out so plainly, especially when aimed at someone completely immune to them. This whole ordeal taught me something new about Sierra. For all her polished appearances and professional accolades, she's still that same insecure teenager who needs to tear other people down to feel tall. She never really grew out of needing to control the narrative, to be the best, the favorite, the one who shines the brightest. The second she realized I wouldn't engage, she tried to recruit my husband to take over the role of policing me. It's the same trick she used to pull when we were teenagers. When she couldn't manipulate me directly, she'd work on my friends, whispering comments to get them to distance themselves from me. Different decade, same tactics. Looking back now, I can clearly see that what I once brushed off as just sister stuff was really part of a bigger pattern. Sierra has always gone out of her way to preserve her role as the golden child. That meant belittling my accomplishments, pointing out my flaws to anyone who'd listen, and making sure our parents stayed firmly in her corner. But I'm not the same person I used to be. 10 years ago, her message would have crushed me. 5 years ago, it would have at least made me question myself. But now? I just see it for what it is, sad, predictable, and kind of pathetic. And my husband's reply? Perfect. He didn't feed the drama. He didn't even flinch. He just responded with, "Thanks for your concern for Jenna." As her husband, my role is to support her happiness, not control her behavior. I think it's best you bring any future concerns directly to her. Take care. That was it. Sierra, of course, couldn't let that be the last word. She sent one final parting shot. "I see she's poisoned you against the family too. Don't say I didn't try to help when this all comes crashing down." The irony is, her so-called help only reinforced what I've already decided: I need to stay far, far away from the dysfunction. Her messages made one thing crystal clear: nothing's changed. She's still that same calculating person who sees any deviation from her ideal narrative as a threat to be squashed. And the most satisfying part? Her big, theatrical attempt at control completely flopped. She couldn't get to me. She couldn't get to my husband. And now she's left flailing, still trying to tell the story her way, while the rest of us just don't care anymore. Instead of driving a wedge between me and my husband, Sierra actually did the opposite. She brought us even closer together. We laughed about her texts that night, completely unfazed by her little warnings about social consequences or family harmony. Honestly, the whole thing was so ridiculous, we ended up booking a spontaneous weekend getaway just to celebrate our peace of mind. That's when it really hit me. Family isn't about keeping up appearances or following some script about who's successful or who fits the image. It's about showing up for each other, laughing when life gets weird, and holding tight when someone, even your own sister, tries to twist things around to suit their narrative. I'm more confident than ever that staying far, far away from Sierra's wedding drama is the right call. My husband and I have chosen to pour our energy into building something real, a life that feels good to live, not one that just looks good in pictures. They say success is the best revenge, but I'm starting to think they've got it a little backwards. Real success isn't about showing off. It's about making peace with your choices, loving your life, and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up instead of hold you back. By that definition, I've never felt more successful. It's been 2 weeks since Sierra's awkward little attempt to manipulate my husband, and things have taken some pretty wild turns since then. If anything, the situation with my parents is unraveling even faster now, and not in the way they hoped. Apparently, they've launched into full damage control mode. I've heard through a few family members that my parents have been calling people one by one, spinning this new version of events where I'm the villain of the story. Their claim? That I'm jealous of Sierra's picture-perfect wedding and have been going around telling lies because I can't stand the idea of her big day being bigger or better than mine. Their latest excuse for skipping my wedding is comedy gold. They say I sent the invitations to an old email address and a former mailing address, even though they've lived in the same house for 30 years and have been using the same email since dial-up. The best part? It's not working. Not even a little. Family members are seeing through the act. Some of them have even come forward with their own stories, moments they'd noticed the favoritism but never said out loud. One of my aunts shared how my mom had pulled similar stunts at other family weddings to keep the spotlight on Sierra. Turns out, this whole center of attention thing is kind of a pattern. The most satisfying part of all this has been watching the family dynamic shift. People who were once neutral, or just stayed quiet to keep the peace, are starting to take a stand. Some of the more influential relatives, folks who were expected to play key roles in Sierra's wedding, have pulled out. Even the fancy venue they secured through family connections may be off the table now. A family friend who runs a luxury dress shop is suddenly dealing with scheduling conflicts. Things hit a boiling point at a casual family get-together last weekend. Someone innocently asked to see photos from my wedding, and my mom just snapped. She went on this defensive rant about how I'd changed after getting married and was now out to destroy the family. Her outburst left several relatives stunned, especially those who hadn't been following the whole situation. Instead of fixing her image, she made it worse. Much worse. It's painfully ironic, really. The harder my parents try to hold up this fantasy of the perfect family, the faster it falls apart. Every time they open their mouths to justify their absence, they accidentally reveal more of their true selves. And the more they try to paint me as the problem, the more people start to connect the dots. The mask is slipping. Even my dad's brother, the one who used to say nothing just to keep the peace, pulled me aside recently and apologized. He admitted he should have spoken up years ago. And now? He and his family aren't attending Sierra's wedding at all. I haven't had to say a word. That's the best part, I've stayed quiet. I haven't had to explain myself or argue my side. The truth is doing all the talking. Every time Sierra or my parents try to rewrite the story, they just end up proving my point. For years, I kept quiet, thinking that if I just stayed calm and didn't stir the pot, things might eventually change. I realize now, all that silence did was allow their behavior to continue. My husband summed it up perfectly the other night. He said, "They built this illusion of a perfect family on emotional manipulation and favoritism. It was bound to fall apart eventually. And that's exactly what's happening." Personally, I've never felt better. The weight of trying to win my parents' approval is gone. The pressure to constantly manage Sierra's emotions has lifted. For the first time in my life, I'm not worrying about maintaining some ideal family image that was never really about me in the first place. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply step back and let the truth breathe.